All right, 6:01 and you're live.
Carrie, are we good?
Yep, you have 6:01 and you're live.
I'm not hearing anything. Okay. Carrie, can you hear me now?
I can.
All right, I got you. All right, let's. Greg, Judy, and Ginny, if you would turn on your video cameras, please. Thank you. Start the Common Council Finance and Human Resource Committee meeting. It is February 7th, 2022. Common Council member Katie Lepari-Shu is excused. Council member Scott Harrington.
Here.
Council member John Rafter.
Here.
Of the committee members that are here, did you have any changes to the minutes that were provided from our previous meeting?
None for me. None for me.
Hearing none, we'll accept the minutes as provided. Topic A, the New York State Department, Electric and Gas Department would like to donate $1,000 to the city of Oneonta towards I believe it was the fire truck. Is there any exception to that from the committee members?
None for me. None.
John? Okay.
None for
Hearing
me.
none, we'll move that.
Greg has his hand up.
Okay.
Len, if I could just jump in with a clarification, I'm certainly not objecting, but the donation is actually not for a fire truck. It's for the fire department would intend to use it for a new natural gas detector. The donation is coming from NYSEG as a result of the city fire department participating in a NYSEG training on natural gas emergency response. It's a program that NYSEG does. Because of our participation, they're donating the $1,000, and Brian and Tim had recommended we use that for a new natural gas detector. So,
Well, I apologize for. Did I get that for? My apologies. All right, so for natural gas detector, move that item up to full council. Greg, you need to talk about you need a modification to it?
yeah, I have to apologize. There was a communication mix-up between myself and the staff on that one, and that's my bad. We had multiple rounds of quotes on this bucket truck that we've been looking to purchase, and the one that was presented to the council for $140,000 and change on the 18th was incorrect. We've since clarified that, and there are basically two options that we're looking at. One is preferred and one is acceptable, but less preferred, and I can explain those now. Just to recap, our budget for this in 2022 is $165,000 intended to come from the Highway Equipment Reserve. That reserve balance is around $380,000 right now. The preferred option that DPW has spec'd out along with Central Garage would cost $179,405. Obviously, that's a little bit over, that's $15,000 or so over our 165 anticipated budget. The reason for this is a little bit bigger than what we have now. So our current boom height can reach 45.5 feet. This would go a little bit longer, higher, 52.5 feet. Doesn't seem like a huge difference, but my understanding is that oftentimes the types of trees and the heights that and distances out away from the truck that we're attempting to reach are such that we can't position the truck very far away, and we end up, our guys are straight up in the air above the truck. At times their limbs and debris are being dropped on top of the truck. There are some cases, it's also a bit of a safety concern if we get to be extended out too far with that. So they really think that the bigger, longer boom would be valuable and have a return for the city, not only in the safety of the operation, but also there would be, and this is hard to quantify, I don't have a number to quantify it, but likely some cost savings in some cases where otherwise we wouldn't be able to trim the tree. We'd have to hire a contractor. In those cases, we'd be able to do it ourselves. But again, I can't really quantify that. The bigger truck also would have outriggers, which the smaller truck doesn't require. However, we feel it would be an overall safer solution if we had the outriggers, just to make it a policy to use them at all times. It would just further reduce the risk of any issues. So the other option would be to replace with essentially the same size truck we have now, which again is about 45.5 foot boom. That cost is $151,761. So that is a difference of approximately $28,000. With either option, we would be expecting to see, if we placed an order now, about a year or more lead time before we receive this equipment. If we were to go with the preferred option, which is a little bit above our $165,000 budget, we would recommend that we just take the entire amount, the 179, out of the highway equipment reserve. Again, that balance right now is about 380,000. So if we were to spend the 179,405, we'd be down to around 200. It may be worth mentioning that, we had discussed during the budget process, potentially adding in some of our surplus from 2021 back into some of these reserves, including this one. So that is an option that I think we intend to consider this spring. Something to keep in the back of your mind as far as equipment reserve balances go.
Greg, how tall is the second option, 179?
The 151 or the 179?
The 151 is a 45 footer with no outriggers, or about the same as what we've been using for many years. The request now is to get a taller or longer boom. And what's the length on that?
52.5 feet.
And how much would this increase the annual maintenance or certifications?
I don't have a number on that. I don't believe it would be appreciable. The difference in maintenance costs, or it's not a CDL truck. It wouldn't be requiring any special license to drive it or any different certifications that what our guys have now.
Questions from the committee?
Is this going to be the last modification, Greg?
Yeah, I'm 100% certain that this is the accurate quote. Last time what we had presented was the budgetary quote that had not been fully vetted, and we didn't have all of the required options that were on there. And we hadn't gotten the quote for the longer boom. So that was my mistake. And I don't believe I'm making another
Where did the
mistake.
148 come from?
The one that was a quote that we had for a truck that did not include some of the options that are necessary, and it was also the smaller truck. So that's the 151 that you're seeing now was previously the 140 and changed before it was updated.
So you want the one with the bigger reach, the 52.5 foot?
That's the recommendation from DPW. That would be ideal.
Can you back up for a couple seconds? We budgeted how much for this?
We included in the 2022 budget, I say that with an asterisk because it's coming out of the reserve fund, which still needs to be approved again by the council, 165,000.
Okay. Thank you. I just don't have my budget in front of me. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Any questions?
None for me.
Greg, refresh my memory. How old is our bucket truck?
10 years old.
10 years old?
Yes.
And I thought before you said that, it's been passing certification?
Yes, it's got some issues that would require, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact terminology of what the issues are. I believe it's something with the boom that would need to be removed and some bearings replaced perhaps. Something that would be rather expensive, and given its current state as far as rust and that, the recommendation is to replace it. It was on the equipment schedule with a 10-year life.
And you're saying that it's going to take a year to get the new ones. So is this looking at getting a replacement, or are we going to, like 6 months from now, 8 months from now, is this piece of apparatus still going to be functional safely to operate? And we're not going to have an issue where we're going to have to lease a vehicle?
I can't say that for certain, but I haven't gotten any indication from Central Garage that it's, imminent that this might go out of service. I think it's something that we can probably maintain for another year, but I can't guarantee that. If that were to be the case, we would, like you said, either have to rent something or utilize contractors.
And you did research on leased apparatus? Did a cost analysis between a leased truck and this one that we're going to purchase and basically hold on for 9 years?
No, I did not evaluate a lease option for this truck.
Do you think in this particular case we should, or?
Recalling back to our evaluation of the enterprise lease program that I believe the county has used for a few years, at least in some areas of their operation, that was mainly for small, like light utility trucks, like pickups and cars, SUVs, those sorts of vehicles. They didn't really have, that I'm aware of, any options for trucks like a bucket truck or larger, heavier equipment. There may be other programs that I'm not aware of. There was no recommendation from DPW or Central Garage, nothing that they had mentioned to me that they had heard of. Overall, a lease program is going to cost the city more money in the long term, unless we were in a position where we're short on cash and we couldn't make the payment to purchase the vehicle. It wouldn't really make a lot of sense because the maintenance would still fall to Central Garage. At least that was our conclusion when we looked at the enterprise program.
Scott, any other questions?
No, I kind of just trying to decide which way to go with the bucket truck. 10 years and what they need. I don't use it, so I kind of got to go by what they need. I didn't realize that our city staff was actually cutting trees. I always thought we had a company come in and do that.
Okay. John and Scott, do you guys want to move this up to full council? And if you do, which option are you going for? I need to know which option you're going to approve.
Well, I would move it up to council. I would go with the 52.5 foot. But Greg, if you bring this back to me again, you're going to go to the smaller truck. How's that? Joking, Greg. I'm joking.
Smiling.
John?
I'm fine with moving it with the bigger or the more expensive option.
Okay. Great, we'll move that up to full council.
Thank you.
Topic C is regarding a change order. We were doing the apron reconstruction. New York State DEC came in and wanted us to upgrade our stormwater collection system. And this is a change order. $89,125 is 100% reimbursable by the FAA. I don't know if I have to abstain because I'm the airport manager. Either way, I'm not gonna vote on this. So John or Scott, do you guys have an objection to moving this to full council? This is a change order to put us in regulations with New York State DEC with regards to stormwater collection. And it's 100% reimbursable by the FAA.
Does
I
that,
agree.
doesn't prolong, like with some of the loans that we get or some of the grants that we get, where we have to make sure that we're in use for like 10 years or so? Does that change that at all? Or is it all just a change order to put us in
This
compliance?
is a change order for money that we had already, we're already into the FAA for multiple work at the airport. So no, it wouldn't. Roundabout way, everything that we take, yes, would add to the length of that relationship. To comply, I guess, compliance, the stormwater collection system.
I'm good with moving it up.
Me too. Mhm.
I'll move up to full council. Then the next one is the use of restricted donations. Jenny, what was the end up? What did that total out to being?
For the total invoices that you want to use. It's about almost $4,000. It's about $35,000 to $4,000. And you've got about $9,000 in the reserves from the donations received from the 50th anniversary.
I have those 4 invoices in front of me, but that was all 4 invoices?
Yep, we've got one for $350, one for $348, one for $817, one for $3,300 and about $4,800.
John or Scott, is there any objection to moving this up to full council?
No, none from me.
Nope, I'm good.
Topic E, we need to talk about the waste oil furnace replacement. I think Jenny, that's you.
Thank you. I was just waiting for Greg's signal. Thanks. This is just informational. As you're aware, when the budget is adopted, all of the equipment that we anticipate purchasing for the next year is listed in the budget. For Central Garage, a furnace was not included in the budget. So this is to bring it to your attention that this waste oil furnace can no longer be repaired. And we really have no choice but to replace it. It's going to be about $14,000. This also is in a proprietary fund, so it's not going to need a budget adjustment because it will not be recorded as an expenditure. It will be recorded as an asset on the balance sheet. That's just the accounting version for the proprietary funds. So we will not need a budget adjustment for it, but I do want to bring it to your attention that we will be having to purchase this.
Jenny, I'm sorry, where are you getting the 14,000 for this?
This will be funded through depreciation over the life of the furnace. So basically what happens is the just total cash that we have on hand will pay for it. And then the other funds will pay the Central Garage Fund over time for the depreciation per year. That's how it gets funded within the Central Garage.
So when you talk about cash on hand, are you talking about the contingency fund?
No, I'm just talking about our cash in general. it's just all of our cash that we have from all of our different funds. It's kind of like in one checkbook then. And when we purchase this for the central garage, we'll be taking it out of the central garage as cash, basically advancing cash from the general fund. Let me put it that way. There'll be, at the end of the year, normally the central garage has a negative cash balance. So we have to just report like a due to, due from between funds to cover it. Just timing.
From the committee members, anybody else have a question for Jenny?
So to say it a little bit more simply, the general fund covers it until it gets fully depreciated.
John, you good with moving this up to council?
I'm fine with that.
As I said, Len, there won't be a motion going to council. This is just for informational purposes.
Okay. So this just stopped working, or
From what I understand, they've been trying to repair it. They've repaired it a number of times.
waste
There's
oil
no-
furnace, it just stopped working?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Did the unit stop functioning?
Yes, from what I understand, that they can no longer repair it, and Greg, do you know if it's almost working or is it actually shut off now?
I don't know the status of it at the moment.
Okay. This been something we would have budgeted for?
If we had known at the time when we were adopting our 2022 budget that this needed to be replaced instead of repaired, we would have listed it as a equipment purchase for the central garage. But as I said, not in an expenditure line, because that's just not how it's treated in that fund.
Okay. Topic F.
Okay, so a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I believe, the council passed a motion designating the city engineer as a certifying officer for seeker determinations specifically related to CDBG funded projects. That's a requirement that CDBG projects carry. At this time, we'd like to update that and have it say city administrator is the certifying officer rather than city engineer. Obviously, due to my title change and the fact that I'd still be the one serving in that role.
Any objection from Scott or John?
None from me.
I'm good with it.
Hearing none, we'll move that up. We're on to topic E, to planning and development.
Okay, we discussed this a bit last time under a different title, I believe.
Right.
We were, included in the budget for 2022 is $60,000 salary, not including the fringe benefit costs, et cetera, for adding a staff person in the community development department. At budget time, we had discussed, if you recall, I believe in one of our November tentative budget discussions, whether or not to fund that position or to perhaps remove that position in order to reduce the amount of unrestricted fund balance needed to balance the budget. The council, as a result of that meeting, decided to keep this position in the budget, and ultimately the budget was passed. So we were looking to move forward with that position. The first thing we did was advertise what we were hoping to fill, which was Deputy Community Development Director. We received 30 or so, 25, 30 applicants. Unfortunately, we didn't find a suitable outside candidate for this position, for the salary that we have available, and given the needs of the department, we didn't find somebody that would fit the bill. However, we did have an internal applicant, which I had mentioned at a previous meeting, our code enforcement officer, Stephen Yearley. And, without getting into the details of his qualifications, he does fit the bill and is a very qualified candidate for this position. And I think he would seriously help out the city's community development department. However, of course, he is our code enforcement officer, and the solution that we've recommended to the council is to award Stephen a stipend of $10,000 to continue his duties as code enforcement officer and also act as the deputy community development director. And then in addition to that, we would then seek to hire a community development assistant at a lower salary. We expect that would be around a $40,000 to $42,000 salary, likely in the CSEA grade 11 range. So that would be, adding the full-time position at a different salary level, different position, and also taking advantage of the unique skill set that Stephen possesses, and further, drawing the connection between code enforcement and community development, which we've explained in the past is an important one that we're trying to build upon, which is part of why we combine those departments into a sort of coalition office. So overall, I guess the first part of this, that solution would save the city about $9,000 within our $60,000 budget in 2022, and we would avoid the need to seek to hire a new code enforcement officer. And I think we would be obviously encouraging professional development within the city for a qualified staff member. And of course, one of the questions that we received last time from this committee was, what is the plan for the future of the community development department? Why is this position needed? We did justify that, and that was discussed in detail as part of the budget process, and the council did decide that it was necessary. But just to kind of recap that and talk a little bit about even beyond this year, community development now, as you know, it's a one-person department. Judy does a great job, and she's been here since 2016, I believe. And really her primary focus, as you know, is grant administration, but there are other projects and initiatives that she's been integral with helping implement, such as creation of the Housing Commission. That was something that she had pushed for, the local waterfront revitalization plan, something that she had pushed for. And those are the types of projects, while there's been some that she's been able to really dig into, there are plenty of others that, she really just doesn't have time to get to with being just one person and having 20 or 30 grants at any given time, programs that need to be administered, which there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of work, forms to be filled, reporting, monitoring, communication with grant applicants in the state and federal funding sources to keep those things going. So in addition to that, I think it's kind of obvious, but I'll state it anyway, that you can't really have much of a succession plan when you have a department of one. So that's always something we're concerned with in city government, local government in general. The loss of knowledge that happens when people move on or retire or change jobs can be significant and have a great impact on the operations. And that's something that in all our departments we want to plan for and hope to avoid or mitigate. And this proposed solution would help in that regard as well. So some of those things that Judy would like to be able to spend more time on in her department, would include economic development initiatives, housing initiatives, where obviously, again, we have a housing commission, we have an economic development committee now, we're talking about these things. There's been a lot of talk over my tenure at the city about, are there ways that we can do more as a city? And I think those are good conversations to have. In order to be able to do any of that, we're going to need more than just a one-person department to help push those initiatives forward. And other things like business development and support. There's been some conversations about what sort of other support could the city provide directly to businesses in the city. And this, conversation that we've been having internally has led to the idea of developing the community development department into what we might call a planning and development department. And the reason for perhaps a name change would be a little bit more descriptive of what we'd hope that department would accomplish. Right now, we don't really have what's considered a traditional planning department. Again, it's one person and mostly focused on grants and whatever else we can get done in the day. But with a little bit more staff, and it would allow us to focus more on the big picture items, planning, development, directly participating and taking a little bit more active role in economic development. I think that's something that probably should be discussed more by the council, likely the Economic Development Committee, as to how exactly we would go about that. But in order for us to be able to have resources to put toward that effort, I think we would need to have the appropriate staffing level. Things like environmental review, land use, historic preservation, neighborhood preservation, site plan review strategies, and then the other various programs and activities. And then ultimately, I think I mentioned this already, but the council, would play an active role in defining what these priorities would be for this department. I mean, we've heard a lot about economic development, but I haven't heard any clear objectives yet. I think that's something we're working toward, but again, we need some people to help us along the way. So with that, does anyone have any questions about what the intent of our recommendation is now, or where we're headed in the future? I think we've got some discussions to be had over the course of the next year or so as to what the priorities are, but I think we've identified a number of things that are currently that we currently lack the resources to take on, and I think this would help us get it. So.
Well, before we go into the goals, Greg, I just want to go back to I'm looking at my budget. I'm on page 85. And so in the budget for 2021, we had this particular, which is grant administration. So we're looking at a change, name from grant administration. Budgeted for $106,000. And at that time, we had 2 personnel scheduled to be in that department. If I remember correctly, we were going to utilize someone from another department to be the administration specialist. We were splitting up a person somewhere. No, Judy, you're shaking your head, so join in the conversation.
Okay, no, actually, if I recall correctly, in 2021, we originally started with a $60,000 budget, and then because of cuts, we cut it down to have half the year. Actually, I think it was taken out and then put back in July, so we had half a year at $30,000 to be able to hire someone. And then in 2022, and we did try, and we were not able to get the applicants that we were hoping for, or that met the requirements that were needed. So then in 2022, the budget was put in at $60,000. And then we still weren't able to make that work with full-time community development deputy director. And this is the plan that we've come up with, which we think will really, really work well, be able to take advantage of Stephen's education and knowledge, and tie in not only that, but also tie in his knowledge of the city zoning and codes and issues.
Judy, I'm just trying to understand the budget. I'm looking at the budget. It's on page 85. And it said that in 2021, we had 2 positions scheduled. And in 22, we had 2 positions scheduled. And so that we just passed the budget in the beginning of December. And here we are, we're looking at a change in the budget. So I'm just trying to understand where the money is different.
We have $60,000 budgeted for a new position, and we're going to fill it with 2 people for around 50 to 52,000. So there'll be about a $9,000 savings. Greg, correct me if those numbers are wrong, or if I'm incorrect there. But there'll be almost a $9,000 savings from what was originally proposed in the budget in January, or adopted.
That's correct.
Okay. So then, is your position where 78,250 is? If we're doing 60,000.
Mine is just under 77.
Jenny,
Jenny,
you're muted.
Do you mind if I clarify? Is it okay, Greg?
Yes, please do.
Okay. The 2021 budget had Judy's position at 76 and a vacancy for 1/2 year at 30,000. That represents the 106 that you're looking at, Glenn. 2022, with the base and longevity increases, Judy is just over 77. And in the budget for the assistant, or with the great plan that they have come up with, is at 61. That's the 138,250.
Okay.
So what they're doing
Trying
is
to get the numbers straight.
yeah. So what they're doing, the plan is to take the 61,000 and split it between two individuals, preparing, as Greg said, for the future, and also spreading out the different duties between Stephen and
In
staff
other
member.
departments, Jenny or Greg, the administration or administrative specialist, what's the salary range on that?
Sorry, Len, could you repeat that question?
With regards to the administration or administrative specialist that's listed in the budget, what's the salary range?
Okay, that was the one listed in the 2021 budget.
No, this is the
Yes.
22 budget.
Yeah, Len, if you look at the 22 budget, it will say on their administrative specialist / new position,
Right.
because they were not sure what title they were going to be able to end up filling. So,
I see.
yeah, so that's why we listed a hybrid for the title.
Right, and that has in the column for 2022, that has a 0 in it. And then the line above that is Deputy Director of Community Development. That had a 0 in 2021, and it has a 1 in it for 2022.
Right.
So the position we budgeted for in 2022 was Deputy Director. We did not budget for administrative specialist, but now what we're proposing is to, as described, have basically both with spending less money.
So how much different is this CD assistant going to be with a administrative specialist? Because I'm just reading the description here as you guys are talking. I'm just trying to understand, and what you're correlating it to grade 11. So I'm trying to understand where we're starting this person that we're going to go out and hire. Are we starting them in the middle, or the beginning, or the end?
Well, I wouldn't really describe it as beginning, middle, or end. I think we have a job description for community development assistant, and we've looked at what those duties entail, and we believe it fits most appropriately on the scale at a grade 11. And if you want, Judy could explain a little more about what the CD assistant would do on a regular basis, how that would help the department.
So if this person stays long-term, how many more grades would they move up?
The CSEA grade, so you wouldn't necessarily move up in grade as you're here longer. There are steps within each grade based on the contract that's agreed to and adopted. If you took a promotion to a different title, you might move grades. But if someone were to remain in that title in, say, grade 11, they would move through the steps. And there are 5 steps for a CSEA title. And then obviously every time there's a new budget year comes out, there's a new contract that defines what their increase would be on an annual basis.
So we're putting the CD director and the assistant CD director in the administrative manual, but you want to put the CD assistant in CSEA.
That's where we think it will likely end up, yes.
I guess I'm trying to understand why are we doing that? Why are we putting this individual in the CSEA when everybody else? I'm just trying to understand why we're putting them in CSEA. And then I'm going to ask, has CSEA signed off on it?
I would have to defer to Kate Becker, Personnel Director, to answer those more accurately. I'm not going to take a stab at that right now. I can get back to you with that answer more specifically. And yes, the CSEA is, being consulted on this.
Any other questions from committee members?
I might have missed it, Len. What was the
John
salary
or
range for
Mark?
this, for the CSEA administrator position?
If it were to be in a grade 11 CSEA, that salary starting in 2022 would be 40. Sorry. I believe it's 41,000. Jenny, do you have it right in front of me? Probably.
Yes, the grade 11, for 2000, just so you know, that the contract, is being negotiated for 2022, but currently the starting is $40,762. And Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm, misstating it, but that's what I see on the grid.
What does it end right now? Like if it was, say somebody transferred over and they're at the high end of that.
The high end is $42,762. It's 2,000 higher.
Okay. Thank you. You might have said it. I might have missed it. I'm sorry. Len, the mayor has his hand up.
Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah. Len, thank you. It sounds like you guys may have reached what looks like the end of discussion. I just want to add my 2 cents if I could. I'm very supportive of this. I think that it strengthens the department in a way that's going to be a huge assist to me and to the city as we start to pursue some of the economic development agenda that we've already started to flesh out. It saves $9,000 off of what was an approved budget line. So this is not something we're asking for more monies. This is something that we've already determined in the budget process that we were in favor of. We voted to allow this $60,000, and so we're saving $9,000 in the process. And I think it's smart. I think they're the right people in the right places to do the right job. And I just want to go on record as being strongly in favor of this. And I hope that this will go up to council as is.
Yeah, I don't think, Mark, anybody here in the community against the hiring of the position. We asked the staff to kind of lay out the next 3 to 5 years where they see it. And unfortunately, we didn't get this until, for me, I didn't get it until an hour before the meeting started. I really haven't had time to truly digest it. That's unfortunate when we had asked for that a couple of weeks ago. And it came down to just a few hours before this meeting that it was sent out. And myself, with my schedule, I was unable to get to it an hour before before today's meeting. For me, I don't mind moving this up to council, but not under consent agenda, but more into discussion so that city staff can explain their vision to the entire council. Because I'm reading this and it seems like it's more still generalized. It's not really, as Greg said, not getting the bullet points, getting down into the bullet points. It's staying more at a 50,000 foot elevation. And I would like to hear where they plan on making dramatic changes. I don't ask Judy what her workload is. I believe that's something Greg is in charge of, or maybe you're having conversations with her. But if you and Greg are saying that this is much needed, that we need to have 2 additional staff in this office, and I'd like to see this item brought up to full council under discussion and not consent. John or Scott,
I'll speak. I agree that it should come up to the council for a discussion. And I also think we would benefit from having some specifics about what will be happening in this position and what differences it will make moving forward. So I'm fine with the idea of discussing it further with the council and and getting a better handle on what we can expect. Should we fund the positions, and what benefits will accrue to the city by doing that? What will the goals be? What sort of expectations would we have? Uh, and so I think that'd be a good discussion to have.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
Yeah, I'm all right with bringing this up to the council and discussion. I think some more specifics would be helpful, like what is the workload? What is the a little bit more on the long range plan? And that $9,000 that we're saving up front, how long do we think that we're going to be saving that? So we can start looking at the budget 3, 4, 5 years down the road. I think we need to start really taking a look at, as we do things, not just what the savings is up front, but what is the long term on the city as a whole. And like John said, what are we really, and I think Len, you said it too, and what we're really trying to gain. And Mark, I think we're all supportive of trying to do economics in the city. And I don't want my statements to sound like I'm against that, because that's really not true at all.
So just for clarity to the city staff, I just want you to know, I'm just looking at the budget when I was doing that questions before, trying to understand how 65,000 was injected into this when there's only 32,000 when you look at the budget. So I was just trying to understand that flow. Thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it. I think the last topic we have is H. Greg, before you go into that, with the mayor on here, I think we should just take this item also up to full council under discussion. Because honestly, Greg, if we look at the city charter on page 10, sorry, page 11, 12, sorry, page 12, it states that after 30 days, if you hadn't selected your acting city administrator, that it was the council prerogative to make such a selection. So I'd rather have us move it right through this committee and go right up to full council, and we can have that discussion with them. Okay. John or Scott, any objections to that?
No, I say move it right on up.
No objections from me.
Are there any other topics that need to be added onto our agenda?
Yeah, can we, your email that you sent out, Len, do you want
Greg,
to
did
go
you
over
have-
that a little bit?
Did John and Scott, I sent out an email to you and Katie talking about the Housing Commission wants to take over, and I guess, Greg, you're working with the Housing Commission with the properties that the city of Oneonta own. And so I just suggested to this committee to go ahead and let them take lead on looking at city-owned property, working in conjunction with you and other city staff members, and for our committee to look at paid parking. I'm wondering if city staff can share the two, I believe there was 2 parking. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. There's been 2 parking studies. If you could share them, Greg, if you could share them with this committee, but I just thrown out there that there was a couple of options when looking at paid parking, whereas the city of Oneonta could, in conjunction with the city staff and council, come up with a plan to implement, maintain, and then collect revenue. Whereas there's an option 2, we could put out an RFP and a third party could come in and take over said parking lots and spaces that we have available along with the parking garage. And so that there would be a lease agreement, and there could be revenue sharing at the end of that. So we could be looking at a monthly check, and then we could also be looking at revenue sharing at the end of the year. Is that what you're getting at, Scott?
Yeah, I completely misunderstood your email when you sent it. And I just want to say I think this I do think I agree with the looking at the paid parking and letting the housing commission look at the city owned properties and what we might be able to do there. Um, my only thing that I would like to see, if possible, I know sometimes our topics get long, is either one meeting a month to try to keep the revenue streams on an agenda for us so that we can keep pushing it forward and keep working at it. Otherwise, I don't know if we're going to need another meeting, but I just don't want to see it get lost. Like we had that one meeting the one time and then it kind of just went by the wayside and now we're bringing it up again. So
That said, John and Scott, I would love to say that between the two meetings, you could say, well, then the first finance committee meeting we have, we would always be able to squeeze in their revenue streams. But it might box us into a corner, whereas there might be, we've had it just recently, almost the entire alphabet topics that we have to deal with, and then we want to talk about revenue streams. So I'm open to questions.
you kind of broke off. You're looking for rather to do it on an agenda, or are you looking to have a separate meeting?
Yeah, it must be on my end, the internet speed. It says I have full bars, but it's must be breaking up. But I'm just saying that, you're hearing me, that there's a potential that we will run out of room by saying if we commit to the first Tuesday or the third Tuesday of the month to talk about revenue stream. That's all.
Oh no, I wasn't talking about maybe the first or the third, just like tonight where we only have a few topics like H, then maybe we could just stick it in there where we could have a conversation. But we also know that there's going to be months that we're going to get so busy because of everything that's going on that we may not be able to get to that and it gets postponed to the next month. But just as long as we're looking at it to make sure that it's there, you know, I'm not looking for like a lock-in date.
So out of the two options that I listed, Scott and John, via the email, and now we're having an open discussion from the public, which option, or both options you guys want to continue pursuing? I think we should pursue both options to see which one would generate the most revenue with regards to the taxpayers' money. But is there a third option that we can look at for paid parking? And Greg, feel free to jump in if you want.
Hey, Len, I don't know if you can see me or not.
I can't.
Okay, can I jump in for a quick second, please? So parking, I'm inclined for the short term to have an ad hoc committee put together of actually 3 council members, 2 of them that have wards that are directly impacted by parking decisions, and 1 member of this, an additional member of this committee, to work with Greg for a short period of time in order to be able to provide more information for this committee and others moving forward. But I think it's important that you guys have so many things to work through. Certainly revenue streams are key for where the city needs to go in the near future. But I'd like to take the parking issue off your plate for the short term and have an ad hoc committee work with Greg and then report back to you guys. So that's been a strategy I haven't shared with you, and I'm sorry about that, but I want to make sure that we don't wind up duplicating efforts here.
Good. Sounds good.
Okay.
Scott,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Thoughts? good.
I'm good with it, but I also want to point out that with the last budget and having problems falling short, that even in that discussion, I remember Ginny coming up saying, paid parking should be on the table. We also have had opportunity to have a resolution among ourselves on the finance committee to say it would be appropriate to at least consider the alternatives or the variety of ways other cities get income, and to take a bit of time with the information we've had. I provided some information and to talk about it. I'm perfectly fine taking another night or another time for the finance committee meeting to meet and focus on some of those things. And then as things seem to, if something pops up as seeming to be a viable possibility, then we can also find out more about what the state might be doing about limiting some of our alternatives on income. It may not be as permissible by state law to do some of the things we might think are just gingy ideas. But we can also look more at even the notion of paid parking, et cetera. But I think it behooves us as a finance committee to take the time that has been used up usually by simply reviewing the kinds of things we're doing and take some initiative to highlight other alternatives for income streams. So I'd like, and I have no objection to taking, doing another meeting in a month. And instead of having 2 meetings a month, have a third meeting, at least to see where we would go with that additional meeting that would purely focus on revenue streams rather than be something that we're shoehorning in or going to other people right now to talk about. And I think it would be a good idea for the finance committee to take the responsibility to focus more on revenue streams with all our time allocated to that in a meeting or 2 meetings.
Agreed. I think I'd rather see us have a separate meeting rather than trying to
Yes.
put it on our agenda all the time.
Yeah, I think that it would be and it would also involve us more with the idea of revenue planning as well as looking at what we generally do, which is take ways we're going to implement or act on an existing budget, which I think is perfectly fine, getting the council prepared for making the vote on expenditures, specific expenditures, and then do more in terms of conceptualizing what other funding streams might look like, whether we can do them, and more research in some of them. So I think it's a great idea to take some additional time for this committee to do that.
I had one more question for Ginny and Greg, if you guys could maybe answer this for me. Is the entire city of Oneonta our own water and sewer district?
Think about that, Glenn. Is the entire city of Oneonta our own water and sewer district? No, the city doesn't have a water or sewer district per se. The city owns the water system that is in the city, as well as the portions of it that are in parts of the town, such as the West End. The town has its own water system in the Angel Heights area, and obviously they're installing their own system on the south side. Those are completely separate from the city, and everything else is city owned and maintained. The city also has its own sewer collection system within the city. The town has sewer districts in the town that feed into the city's system. All of that wastewater is then treated at the city's treatment plant. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I knew that. I'm just I want to make sure that I wasn't incorrect on that. So with regards to the water and sewer work that we do, when we go to bond those two funds, do the not-for-profits, people that are exempt, do they participate in paying towards those bonds?
I'll let Jenny answer that one.
Any user that receives water or sewer services will pay towards any debt service expenditures. So because it's a user fee, tax exempt properties are not exempt from paying for their water and sewer services.
So on their water sewer bill, there's a separate line on there that helps pay towards our debt services with regards to the sewer fund or the water.
It's not a separate line on their water and sewer bill. It's all together as of right now. There's no separate line that shows them what the debt portion is.
So all properties in the city of Oneonta help pay towards those debt services, water and sewer.
Yes, and so do the town customers. So all of our customers with the city and the town, they all help pay towards that debt service. Any customer, colleges, hospitals, churches, residents, businesses, anybody who's hooked up to the system helps pay towards those debt payments.
No, thank you. If no one else has any other items to add to the agenda, get a motion to adjourn.
You broke off when I'm sorry. What'd you say?
I said, if there's no other items to add to the agenda, if I can get a motion to adjourn.
Okay, so moved.
John, second.
Do we want to schedule that additional meeting that we were discussing before we
Well, since it's-
adjourn?
I'll throw,
That was available.
I apologize for this internet issue, but I'll throw out an email with some dates.
Great.
Okay.